You say Democrats could do better with white working people. That essentially has driven the party for decades, but they've been leaving in droves. How has the party alienated what you call white working people, do you think?
My message really is, if you're talking about opportunities and fairness for working people, you shouldn't be doing this based on any identification with a racial or an ethnic group. You should be doing it based on what the economic and social conditions are of those folks. And I think that's doable. I think that's what the Democratic Party did for a very long time, and it's not that hard to get back to. I think one of the great messages for the Democrats would be to reach out and demonstrate that this is the party of inclusiveness. And that's one of the reasons that I decided to run as a Democrat, and some of the things I was writing before I even decided to run for the Senate, talking about how the Democratic Party needs to become the inclusive party again for working people, regardless of ethnic background.
You talk about coal country, for example. The Democratic Party very much now wedded to reducing emissions from coal, this administration in particular. What would you do to rein in the influence of some of the big players in the Democratic Party who are really pushing that? What would you do on that issue?
Well, I think when you look at that area of the country that has been a part of the coal-producing areas, for instance, the far southwest of Virginia, you'll see coal has been reduced in terms of volume. Tobacco is gone. They were very heavy tobacco farmers. We need a different economic dynamic in those regions. And on the other hand, on issues like coal and other energy, I believe in full energy capabilities, but I also believe in technology. And I think there are technologies there that have been demonstrated that can make for cleaner emissions on coal. And I think, quite frankly, that's an area that we should look at rather than just shutting coal plants down.
Let's turn to foreign policy. Your books, your movie credit, Rules of Engagement, sounded themes of warriors being left out in the cold by craven politicians. You don't like to waste blood of American military. Nobody does. Is that a policy shaped by your Vietnam experience? And how does it factor into who you are and what you would be?
To be totally accurate here, I've been one of the strongest voices in terms of re-engagement with Asia and the stakes that we have in that part of the world. This administration talks about the pivot toward Asia. We started that from my office 2 years before President Obama was elected. I fought to get on Foreign Relations Committee. I got the chairmanship of the East Asia Subcommittee. I announced to my staff from our office that we were going to focus on strengthening our relations with Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, and to change the formula in Burma. I led the re-engagement with Burma. I was the first American leader to go to that country in 10 years when we took that delegation. What I believe is that the way that you conduct your national security objectives, the way that you assure that these national security objectives are met, should be done very carefully and according to a larger strategy. And since the end of the Cold War, we really have not had that kind of clear articulation of what our national strategy is. And I was very much opposed to the invasion of Iraq. I think I wrote the first piece in a major newspaper 5 months before the invasion, warning of the strategic consequences of that. I was in embed in Afghanistan as a journalist. I was in Beirut in 1983 when the Marines were there as a journalist. So I think I've been able to see these issues in a way that's different than most people who are in government. First, having grown up in the military, having served as a Marine in a very difficult period of the Vietnam War, having a son serve in the Marine, having covered the military as a journalist, having spent time in the Pentagon, and also having been in the Senate.
If you run, as expected, you're going to be up against the Clinton organization, which is obviously massive. Is it possible for you to raise money to get support in that dynamic?
Well, it's not just the Clinton apparatus. Jeb. Jeb Bush has announced that he's going to try to raise $100 million in 3 months. And the question for me really is, can you advance the principles of leadership and offer people leadership that they can trust and that understands where the country is and not have to be bought. And we'll see. I mean, that's why I announced an exploratory committee where we're out talking to people and listening. And it's a huge jump.
If somebody doesn't know you, and obviously Virginia knows you well, but somebody doesn't know you, what's one thing you would tell them?
I would say, look at what I've done in my life. Just look at what we've done, and even the time in the Senate where we brought results. We didn't just talk. We brought results. We put together the most important piece of veterans legislation since World War II, the post 9/11 GI Bill. Did it in 16 months. That was not an easy lift. The Bush administration opposed us to the day that passed. We brought criminal justice reform out of the shadows. People were telling me it was political suicide to start talking about that when I was on a campaign trail. Now it's a big issue in the Republican Party, but it wasn't when we started. We led the pivot to Asia. We started talking about economic fairness. In my rebuttal to President Bush's State of the Union in 2007, I put it as the #1 issue that should be discussed. What they were trying to recommend that I do was to bury it behind a bunch of stuff about Iraq. So just take a look at the issues that we have put on the table and the fact that we have brought home results in a time when the Congress was in a great deal of paralysis.
And taxes and budget?
We need complete tax reform, and I would be very supportive of the notion of reducing the corporate income tax, cleaning out loopholes, but also we need to look at the taxes on passive income. You know, I have said from the time that I ran for the Senate that I will never vote for increasing taxes on ordinary earned income. And I frustrated a lot of Democrats because I would never vote for that. But I do believe that you can raise taxes on capital gains, on passive income. And right now, I think that is a fairness issue for the country.